as you can see from the backdrop, Hanoch, no longer in the diaspora, back in the land, in Moda'in. And Hanoch, I understand that you had a wonderful trip back. It was just a great flight, extra seats all over the place, very quiet, right?
Actually, your sarcasm is readily evident, but I did sit next to a 2-year-old toddler. The irony is
You could relate.
his father actually happened to go to high school with my son-in-law.
Oh,
So, a little bit of Jewish geography. But this kid didn't sleep. This kid didn't sleep. So I watched like an entire season of Chicago PD, uh, Chicago Fire, whatever it's called, old seasons of Friday Night Lights. I mean, you name it. I've caught up on TV in America,
okay.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, you name it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But you're back in the land, so
yes,
hitting the ground
yes.
running?
The ground has hit me running. It is now 3 o'clock my time here in Israel, 8 o'clock Franklin Central Time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've been on the ground here in Israel for a little less than 8 hours.
Okay.
So the good news is I cannot even feel how tired I am yet. So this is good. We've got a lot to talk about.
Okay, go for it, because I know you have a
Okay.
meeting you got to go to also.
Yeah, yeah. First of all, people are, were stopping me, asking me, so what's with this judicial reform? And I'm like, don't even bother to discuss it yet.
Yeah.
Because we've got two opposing things. The judges in our high court have not acted well. On the other hand, Netanyahu is a megalomaniac. It's not a good mix. Nothing we can do about it. Let's move on. You may have noticed, I say this you, that's the royal you, use, that my government has destroyed um, uh, trees in Shiloh and other. So this is playing out almost exactly the way I described it since November. Once it appeared that this would be the government, that don't expect anything good to happen from it. They've already announced that near the end of Ramadan, which hasn't begun yet, Jews will once again not be able to go up to Har HaBayit, the Temple Mount. This is business as usual. So even though there's Ben Gvir and Schmotrich and these other guys and women, same old, same old. Big news, though.
Okay, wait a minute. The
Yes, I'm
destroying
sorry.
trees in Shiloh, what was the purpose of that?
That was an illegal building permit.
So planting a tree is an illegal building?
Um, in this particular area, yes. Now, I again,
Okay.
my mind's a little cloudy. It may
Uh-huh.
not have been Shiloh, but somewhere in the area. But yeah, but what's considered, you see, Judea and Samaria, and this is already for my follow-up talk in July and
Mm-hmm.
August. Judea and Samaria are not part of the sovereign state of Israel.
Right.
They are run by a military governorship of the IDF. Sounds fine, but you need a permit to do everything. You want to build a shed over where you park your car, it requires a permit. So this is everything is a big deal, but the bottom line is don't expect anything good.
Okay.
The big surprise, that to me, that wasn't a surprise. It was a
Mm-hmm.
surprise to be sitting in Florida and look at the TV and see Biden showing up in Kyiv, but whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Big news for me. First of all, a lot of big things, but as of today, looking back on 2022, 95,000 Jews from, believe it or not, 95 different countries
Hmm.
made Aliyah last year.
Okay.
Let me give you a little perspective. The average from the United States alone is 3,500 per year. So this is really significant. It is nothing like the Russian or Soviet or post-Soviet Aliyah of the
Sure.
90s, where you had 1 million Soviets, about 2/3 who were actually Jewish,
Hmm.
come to live in Israel in a 10-year period of time. That's a promising thing. But I had a really interesting experience last Shabbat that I'd like to share with everybody because I think there are lessons to be learned for all the different congregations that our listeners belong to.
Okay.
I was in, I was, I couldn't get an Airbnb in the neighborhood where my daughter lives, my daughter Kira, who recently had the baby. And, and for our listeners, the baby's name is Yan Yosef Dov. Um, I can tell you that. I can write that to you in a message or an email. I cannot post that on social media.
Yeah.
So yeah, so if people say like people like say, you never announced the baby's name. Yeah, it's not my choice.
And by the
Anyway,
way, you cut out right there, so it's Yonatan Yosef Dov. Okay, got it.
correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. So I was in a neighborhood called Long Island City. Long Island City is actually part of Queens. It's part of Queens closest to Manhattan, right along the East River, for those of you who have ever been to Nueva York. 40 years ago, 40 years ago, actually a little more, I think it was 1980, Sunday New York Times, there was a big article that New York City was going to gentrify Long Island City. Anyway, it took a long time. Now it's like this really cool neighborhood, very expensive. But I got an Airbnb there and it's really close to Manhattan. That brings us to the next story. So, to me, as far as I knew, Long Island City had no Jewish community whatsoever.
Mm.
So, it's one thing, I can buy all the kosher food I want, kosher prepared foods for Shabbat, that's fine. But I'm walking along in Long Island City, and right ahead of me is a young teenage boy on a kind of not a skateboard, but whatever, scooter of some kind. And he's wearing a black fedora and he has tzitzit sticking out of his coat.
Mm.
That spells Chabad.
Yeah.
So I, of course, go to Harav Google, Rabbi Google, and I ask Jewish community, Long Island City. Sure enough, there's a Chabad. I call them up. They invite me over for Shabbat meals. It was a Friday night dinner. It was wonderful. I sponsored the kiddush, um, the kind of snacks, but it wasn't a snack. It was a lot more than that because this is Chabad and they know how to eat.
Yeah.
This is my first time that I've ever been intimately involved with Chabad.
Ah,
I've met people from Chabad, but here's the interesting thing. I didn't realize this. They've been there for 17 years
wow.
in an area that's transient, upcoming, and expensive. What that correlates to is young people, young families that move there are there for only a number of years and then move on. The cost, I asked someone there that I kind of got friendly with, the cost for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment there and this is on a low floor in a high rise. So this is like second floor. And these people were able to get a good deal because they're both teachers. So they qualified for some New York City housing thing. So they only pay $3,700 a month for that apartment.
Wow.
Okay. This is all a frame of reference. So in this time, Chabad, which is open and welcoming and non-judgmental to any Jewish person that
Hmm.
wanders by, they are not at all missionary.
Yeah.
They are not counter missionary. They're they
Yeah. They
love the
just,
world.
yeah. Yeah.
That's okay. They're there to serve the Jewish community. So they built a preschool. When I say built, I don't mean a building. They have built up a preschool of 40 kids. The irony of that, by the way, is two of those kids are the children of a guy by the name of Adam, who was my daughter Ayala's best friend in Ulpan when he lived here in Israel. He since is back in America. They have 30 kids in an after-school Hebrew school. Now, not all of these kids have two Jewish parents. The preschool, of course, even has some Asian children who wanted to come specifically because it is a Jewish school. You know, they can't say we're only taking Jewish kids. What's my point of this whole thing? I said to the Rabbi Zev, I said, that's a tremendous amount, and I use the Hebrew term for it, the tremendous amount of self-sacrifice that you guys are here, your whole family, working towards this for years. I mean, because understand something, there's not a single Shabbat Friday night dinner where they don't have guests over.
Yeah.
Someone walks into to Chabad, they immediately say, what's your email address? We want to invite you to Shabbat dinner. So they're always hosting, every moment they're running the schools, they're running the adult education classes. He said something to me, and this is what I really want to share. He said, when I said about self-sacrifice, not at all. Because I had said, you know, in a neighborhood where people don't stay, I mean, there is no Orthodox community there.
Yeah.
He said, it's not for us. It's not even for our children. We're planting seeds for their children. So he's talking about 2 generations down the road. Now, here it is. You and I are always encountering people whose congregations are struggling, who are looking to build something, who are looking to focus on the younger people in their congregations. And here's a guy for 17 years, his whole family. Understand something, in the neighborhood, there are no other children for their children to play with.
Wow.
You know, I mean, they're not all that far a drive from Brooklyn, but to me, it's an amazing thing to have such a long-range view where you're looking not just for your children. So in other words, it's like you're looking for Reuben's generation. It's the idea that you and Kathy and others are sacrificing. So maybe Reuben's generation can have something going.
Yeah.
To me, that was amazing.
Wow.
The other thing is, with the start of the month of Adar, by the way, Chodesh Tov, good month to everybody. There's an expression, Misha nichnas Adar marbim v'simcha. The one who enters into Adar has to have increased joy. And he said something, and this is one of those things where I thought the message was directed at me, even though there were about 15 or 18 people sitting there at the table. He said, you cannot have joy unless you're able to be present in the moment. You cannot be living in the past. You cannot have all your focus in the future. You have to be in the present to be able to enjoy what Hashem has given you.
Wise words.
Now, I was gobsmacked. And it was a good almost ending to what has been a very fascinating trip for me. I would say just about every trip I take to the States, 27 of them, have been fascinating. But I see a tremendous amount of evidence of things that we can all be excited about and joyful about, along with the constant reminder of how much effort each and every single one of us has to continually put in to make this happen.
Yeah.
There's never really much more than a couple of days off, or like a little family vacation sort of thing. It's fascinating
Hmm.
in that sense.
Interesting. Good words to ponder.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. I'm still, and and this is the other thing. If you're looking to fly direct on El Al to Israel, and you want to escape the crowds, the chaos, and the anxiety of JFK, Kennedy Airport, first of all, many of you already know Newark is an option.
Yeah.
That Newark, just to remind people, is in New Jersey. They built an airport and they forgot to put people around it. So, it tends to work out well.
Yeah.
For the first time ever in my life, flew home direct from Miami. Miami had this really, really relaxed. I mean, even the El Al security guard, he
Wow.
didn't speak to me for more than 30 seconds.
Hmm.
And usually, my hair all bushy and stuff and not
Mm-hmm.
sleeping and emotionally wrought after 6.5 weeks of traveling around with people that I love the most, I looked like a wild man. He was like, yawn. Anyway, the people I there were people that were first coming to line up for El Al at a quarter after 10 for boarding at 11. That never happened. Like
Wow.
you're like 3.5, 4 hours
Oh
ahead of
yeah.
Miami. The problem, flying from Miami is 11 hours, 35
Mm-hmm.
minutes. And for
Mm-hmm.
the first time ever on a flight back to Israel, we hit turbulence repeatedly.
Oh wow.
I personally have had bad experiences with turbulence flying domestically in the United States. And that's where I learned the rosary prayer. For those who haven't heard the story, it's a great one. I was actually flying from a MIA conference, Messianic Israel Alliance, in
Mm-hmm.
2008. And we hit tremendous turbulence, and the things are flying, and people are screaming. And the woman behind me starts really loud shouting out the rosary. And I really, Holy Mary, and it was the last paragraph that got me because she kept repeating it. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and in the hour of our death. Now, it was really, really
Mm.
upsetting. Okay, then when it finally kind of stabilized a bit as we're getting closer to the Northeast, two women from across the aisle came and sat next to me. They were from Mexico, and in Spanish, they explained that they came to sit next to me because they saw the kippah, and they said, just in case Dios, God, Hashem, is with me, they wanted to be sitting next to me to cover all their bases, which I thought was a riot.
Yeah.
Um,
That's kind of a new twist on the 10
yeah,
men from the nations.
it's kind of like, listen, we've already said the rosary. We've already said every psalm that we've ever
Yeah.
memorized. Let's sit next to the Jew. You never know. You never know. You never know. They're still holding onto the cross and the rosary, but they're sitting there. That's fine. It's all
Okay,
good.
so you got the cross and the
Yeah.
rosary in one hand and the zit of the Jew in the other hand. There's something about that just is ironic.
You know, we talk about mutual respect.
Yeah.
This is kind of like, I don't know. In any case. But I do want to say I've never done a presentation in America, or actually two different ones that I did this time, that have gotten such incredibly positive feedback. So I've already been working for a few weeks on a follow-up because I am hoping, Be'ezrat Hashem, with God's help, to come back to America somewhere in the July, August timeframe. It may have something to do with seeing little Yoni, my favorite grandchild. Okay, he's my only grandchild. Um, he's a big boy. He was born at 9 pounds 5 ounces. So people said, is your daughter a very large woman?
No.
So I said, No, actually, she's not. And I said, but and I've been encouraging her, to stop taking anabolic steroids while she was pregnant. And people look, and you know, my sense of humor may not be the best, admittedly, but people kind of like, wow, really? Duh. Anyway, so, lots going on here in Israel.
Yeah.
Um, Netanyahu, of course, who promised everyone that only he can bring security.
Mhm.
We've all been reading the reports of the last number of weeks to the last few months. It is a difficult security situation. Our inexperienced ministers, including Ben Gvir, Minister of National Security, when he calls for an operation, cast lead, number 2,
Yeah.
uh, for whatever reason, it didn't dawn on him that the Arab residents of Jerusalem are not Israeli citizens, but they are residents of Jerusalem. So they have all the benefits of citizenship, except they don't vote in national elections
Yeah.
because that's what they chose. They didn't want to be Israeli citizens. So in other words, it's not like Judea and Samaria, which are under the military
Mhm.
governorship of the IDF. You
Yeah.
can't handle it the same way. First of all, the IDF isn't legally allowed to operate within our cities. It's like in the US,
Mhm.
you cannot have the US Army and Marines, you know, keeping it's the
Yeah.
National Guard.
Yeah. Same thing.
Different situation. Anyway,
I did see that they went into to Shkem.
yeah, we do this stuff all the
Oh
time.
yeah.
Technically, the so-called Palestinian Authority technically has ended security cooperation with Israel. That really isn't true. They say that, but there are back channels of dialogue. I do think it's outrageous that the Blinkens of the world, America's Secretary of State, are saying like how outraged. First of all, the UN even made a statement against our proposed judicial reforms.
Hmm.
I mean, is there no country in the world that they can focus? I mean, how is it that the United Nations is not focused on ending the Russian invasion of Ukraine with now you've got the Chinese sending aid to Russia. You already have the Iranians, and then you've got America, promising a gazillion dollars
Yeah.
in aid, and the idea that you can't just send F-16s to Ukraine, you actually have to send people to train the
Hmm.
Ukrainians not only how to fly them, how to maintain them.
Yeah.
I mean, this is becoming a whole big thing, but it's Israel, wanting to legalize an addition to the community of Itamar.
Hmm.
This is it's
Yeah.
it's
On the
craziness.
on what could be, and I personally believe that that this whole thing is that we are already in the undeclared World War III. Um, we'll see. I've heard some commentaries, commentators actually starting to use those words lately. But in the midst of all that, it's the problem with peace, world peace, is that you Jews are planting trees in Samaria.
That is, and there may be some family in Ma'ale Adumim that just on the birth of their eighth child wants to have an extension built onto their home.
No,
Oh,
that
by
that
the way,
yeah, should never be
by the way,
right.
just one quick diversion back to that Chabad family. The rabbi is one of 9 children.
Hmm.
His wife is one of 10 children. And she did not grow up Chabad. She grew up religious. Actually, her family I remember her father owned an amazing restaurant in the late 70s and 80s in Manhattan, a fabulous kosher restaurant. Anyway, make a long story short, I no longer think of the Connor clan as a large family. I want to say that officially. I make all the jokes about all the little Christies and, not being able to count how many. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay.
So, just want to
Uh,
say,
one question before you dig that hole any further.
yes,
So did you have a chance to talk to the Chabad rabbi regarding Israel,
yeah,
Aliyah, things like that? Because
okay.
my understanding is that Chabad is not up to this point been pro Aliyah.
Okay. Their view is they're looking to establish Jewish life
Hmm.
anywhere in the world that there are Jews.
Yeah.
One of the books that he's currently reading, and I saw it there, and he mentioned it to me when I told him my background. He's reading Rav Kahana's book, They Must Go.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And he told me, okay, this isn't Aliyah, but this is relating to Israel. He told me how after 1967, Israeli generals and politicians, whenever they would come to America, always visited the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rav Schneerson, well known. But he was telling them all at the time, give each Arab 15 lira. The lira was our currency before the shekel. Actually, we now have the new Israeli shekel,
Hmm.
NIS. Before that was the shekel. Before that was the lira. That's what inflation does, changes your currency. He said, give each person 15 lira and take them to the Allenby Bridge. Take each Arab.
Mm.
So Rav Schneerson even knew that. Now, they haven't been, the rabbi and his wife haven't been to Israel in quite a number of years. But when I met a young person there who was 23 and I was encouraging him to go on the birthright program, they were very supportive. So, in other words, they're supportive of Israel. Their focus is in Aliyah, which, of
Mm.
course, to me is the cup half full
Yeah,
at
sure.
best. But they politically, um, and in terms of their worldview of the Torah, they're very similar to us
Hmm.
in the sense of understanding the Arab thread,
Hmm.
etc.
Okay. Well, thank you for the update and get some
Sure.
rest after I know you got a meeting to go to. So,
Yeah.
enjoy that and may
Hope.
you find some work here.
Well, I actually I have guiding coming up next week.
Good, good.
We may have to shift our schedule
Okay.
because I believe Wednesday I'm supposed to be with a group up in Shomron,
Okay.
Mount Kabir, Har Grizim,
Oh,
which is always a joy.
yeah.
Um, and just to remind people, because we haven't said it to them in a week, um, the Connect to Israel tour,
Yeah.
November 5th through 17th, is filling up rapidly.
Yes, it is.
Oh, Hashem, thank God. Considering that we only announced it at the beginning of January, we're now about 5.5 to 6 weeks in, and we're about halfway, a little more
Uh,
than halfway, maybe
Actually,
60.
we're over that. So yeah, people need to make some decisions and give me a call.
Yeah,
Email me.
otherwise, yeah. Remember, we're totally against people being left behind. So,
That's right. All right. Take care. We'll talk
Mike, have
soon.
a great one. Bye, guys. Shalom.